Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Strazynski. Thank you so much for joining us on episode number 84 of CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is one of the best mixed game players in the world today, but believe it or not, it's possible you may not have heard of him. The man has won not one, not two, not three, but four WSOP bracelets in events as diverse as Razz, PLO, PLO8 and HORSE, and he's got over $1.2 million in career live tournament earnings. I think one can say, however, that he is primarily a cash game player, which is why he might fly under a lot of people's radars, but no more. We've got him right here for you for a great conversation, and it's time to get to know him a little better. Kevin Gerhart, welcome to the CardsChat podcast.
Hey, appreciate it. That was a pretty awesome intro.
I've been practicing for weeks. Did I get it right?
I think you nailed it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. For those who are watching on YouTube, I do apologize about the lighting. I'm in a hotel room in Malta. We're going to just do our best. It's evening, and Kevin was kind enough to give us some of his time this morning from Las Vegas. We appreciate it. So Kevin, just to sort of quantify this whole, like, people know you, don't necessarily know you. You've been in poker for several years, and you've played regularly in these big mixed cash games in Las Vegas. Prior to last WSOP, you had already won 2 bracelets, but this last WSOP is kind of like, I think, where you kind of really got on people's radars. A hell of a year, 2 more bracelets, you double your career tournament earnings. Would it be unfair to use the word breakthrough as far as last year, like that was really your breakthrough year, or not? How do you sort of view things?
It has to be my breakthrough year. I mean, going from 500K to 1.2 million, and going from 2 bracelets, one of which was online during the pandemic, which
Right.
most people don't necessarily know about, to just the way I like to phrase it is, it's always been a goal of mine to get drafted by the 25K fantasy, just one of the teams. It doesn't matter if it's $1, $5, $10, whatever. But going from someone who's been undrafted his entire career to potentially top 15, maybe even top 10 value in a matter of a year or two is incredible for me.
Right. And to be fair, those who don't know what this 25K fantasy, it's, like just like any fantasy basketball or sports team, something like that. Often those who play the most games well tend to go high in the draft because the fields are a little bit smaller and they have the potential of scoring more points as they run deep. So well phrased, and that's a pretty good answer, and it must feel pretty good, like you said. Do you kind of feel, though, that perhaps in general, mixed game players cash game players, that they fly under the radar a little bit, and I guess only at the WSOP do they get the chance to shine? Like, what's your view on that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, cash game players, you don't get any recognition from anything, right? There's no bracelets, there's no media, there's no reporting, there's no anything to say that you're actually good and doing well at poker. You need some sort of tournament scene to finally break through or break out, as you just mentioned.
Right. But does that bother you, though? Meaning, like,
No, not at all.
Because that's what I'm saying, because you're still doing your thing, you're still playing, and plenty of cash games players successful. Is that something you kind of like, well, it would be nice if we got some more coverage in the cash game sheets, or it's like that's not something you're chasing?
For me, it's never been about the glory. My entire goal for being a poker player has been to avoid the 9 to 5. I never want to wake up to an alarm clock. I don't want to have a boss except for my girlfriend. I don't want to be on a certain schedule. I just want to live life to its fullest and enjoy every moment without having to worry about where the next paycheck is coming from.
That certainly sounds like living the dream in many, many ways, and you're certainly in the right town for it in Las Vegas there. Well, further, I don't know exactly what your origin story is, as far as, you said, like, you used to work that 9 to 5 job, you were in poker, but let's go a little bit prior to that, that whole 9 to 5 job thing. You graduated, University of Akron, you had a degree in, was it electrical engineering? Right?
That's correct.
So what was sort of life like growing up, young Kevin? Did you have any sort of aspirations for this idea of like a career in, as an engineer? Or how did you sort of fall into that to begin with?
So as far as aspirations for a career in engineering, I'm very, very stereotypical, as in I was very good at math and science in school. And what do people that are good in math and science do in college? They go to engineering, right?
Right.
And engineers get paid pretty well. I mean, you can make a pretty good living. I never
Yeah.
wanted to be like a doctor or anything.
Hmm.
I very, very quickly determined that I did not want to be like a lawyer or anything, although
Hmm.
patent lawyers make so much money, but it's so much hard work and so much schooling and studying. But I've always loved games, and I've always loved playing games. And back in middle school, and before I got into Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Magic cards, and I mean, it's just always been um, in my blood to play games and play card games. You know, on my mom's side, we grew up playing euchre with her family, and on my dad's side, my grandma would always play canasta with us, and it's just always been just games my
Like
entire life.
cribbage also?
Uh, I didn't start playing cribbage until I met my girlfriend, because her
Oh,
parents are from her grandparents are from England,
uh-huh.
and they love playing cribbage.
Uh-huh. Nice. That's what, and true to form, I will say that just before this interview, Kevin said, just got to finish this video game. So it's certainly
Right,
not a
yeah.
bluff. You had
No
mentioned that.
kidding.
So it seems like, though, as you said, though, you've mentioned with each of those careers that money was clearly something in your head. Like I guess growing up, it was important to you to make a lot of money or be rich or just have enough that you could do whatever you want to do.
Right. And that was the goal, have enough money to have freedom. And
Uh-huh.
freedom has
Okay.
always been my number one goal.
Cool. So when you got into poker, when that first sort of began, well, first of all, what was it? And then I guess how quickly did it turn into, oh, that's interesting, to, oh, that's something I could use to make money and obtain that freedom?
So like most people, at least in my generation, I started with the moneymaker era, right? 2003, random guy wins the World Series of Poker main event, and I learned
Sure.
poker. We played $5 tournaments with my friends at the kitchen table. Then
Nice.
I moved into high school and played, $20 tournaments with my high school friends from the tennis team. And then eventually, when I got into college, I started dating a girl who was a massage therapist and got a job at the casino. And I went
Ah,
to the casino, and the first night I turned like 200 bucks into 400, and I was just addicted after that point. I went to YouTube and Twitch and just tried to digest every single thing I possibly could. And that's just kind of my personality too, very addictive personality when it comes
right,
to things I enjoy.
right. And you mentioned you've been all into all sorts of games, so I guess that makes it very understandable why mixed games were appealing to you. When did you sort
Right,
of
yes.
discover the mix beyond the Hold'em that you saw with Moneymaker on TV?
So I used to be actually pretty competitive at Magic the Gathering, which is
Hmm.
pretty common amongst poker players. I traveled from Cleveland to all the surrounding cities. I went to Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Detroit, Columbus, Buffalo, and I even flew to a certain number of locations. I flew to Hawaii, I flew to LA, I flew to Florida, I flew to Atlanta, I flew to Richmond. I mean, I've been all over the country playing poker tournament or playing Magic tournaments
Sure.
before my poker career even started.
And there was money in that. Excuse my ignorance.
Not really. The only money in that is if you're basically number one in the world, like the best player ever, I think has barely cleared $1 million over his entire 30
Got it.
year career, 25-year career.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
there's no money in that, but I did it for fun because I enjoyed it, and my brother tagged along with me for a lot of it.
Got it.
And I mean, it's just the competitive nature that I have to just be one of the best. I competed in the highest level tournament in the world 3 times.
Okay. That's cool. That's pretty
So I
cool.
mean, it's been quite a journey evolving from Magic to poker.
Sure. So the mixed game, so where did they sort of come in?
Oh, the mixed games, I have to give all the credit to Jason Somerville. Once I found his YouTube channel and his Twitch stream, I just watched him play on all these, horse events on Stars back in the day, and
Hmm.
just loved that you get so many more cards, there's so many different games, and you get to just kind of outthink everyone on so many different levels.
For sure.
But Jason is the person that I have to give all the credit to at least my early mixed game prowess. I mean, when I moved to Vegas, I remember playing $4, $8 mixed games at Caesars,
Uh-huh.
and that's where I started. And
Nice.
winning like $100 back in the day, 5 or 6 years ago was awesome.
As someone who occasionally wins $100 at a 4-8 game, I concur that it
Yeah.
still is awesome. And I love
Yes.
it's so cool. Like you said, back in the day, 5, 6 years ago, it's
Right.
amazing the transformation that can happen in just a short span of 5, 6 years.
Yeah. No
Um,
kidding. It's
I
been
love the shout
amazing.
out. I love the shout out to Jason because that's gonna definitely explain one of our future questions here. I am wondering though, and like you said, playing games is one thing, and then appreciating the need to have that money is the freedom. But like at some point, you decided to quit your job, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try this whole poker thing. I guess
Yep.
it was around 5, 6 years ago. But what was that thing that clicked in your head that said, okay, it's time to give this a shot? When did you think like I could do this and make a living from it?
So I quit my job in December of 2015, and the reasoning was I was basically burning the candle at both ends. It's like an old
Mm,
old time saying, and I would get up, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, go to work from 7 to 4, go to the casino, play from 5 to 1 a.m., go home, do it all over again the next day.
mhm.
And the job that I was working at, basically, I wasn't getting paid as much as I should have or expected to get paid. And they allegedly made it all up in Christmas bonus
Okay.
to give you the difference from what you should be paid. And they had a down year that year. This was my third year working for the company,
Mhm.
and basically I didn't get the bonus like even close to what I was expecting. Right, so I lost maybe 20% of my paycheck.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I love poker so much, and I've always been smart. I've always had the ability to study, and I've always loved games. So I tell my mom, I'm moving to Vegas and I'm going to try playing poker for a living. If it doesn't work out, I still have my degree. I could always be a dealer. I could always do something else. It's just, I'm 25 years old, 26. I think I was 26 at the time because I just had a birthday, and I'm still young and I can do whatever I want in life. And I'll never forget her response was, I'll believe it when I see it. So I spent the next, I quit my job in December, spent the next number of months just playing poker at the casino, um,
In Cleveland.
in Cleveland.
Uh-huh.
Moved back in with my parents for a couple months,
Mhm.
um, and in June of 2016, I packed up my car with whatever I could fit in it, mostly just
Wow.
clothes. Didn't have a place to stay. Didn't have a plan. My
Wow.
brother and I drove 36 hours across the country,
Straight?
landed almost straight. We,
Okay.
we
Wow.
I took one break. The
Okay.
first day I drove for 20 hours straight, and I took one break, and I made it there the next day. And I
Uh-huh.
did all the driving, and I ended up
Oh, to
staying
be
at the
young.
I stayed at the Flamingo for about a week, and my brother and I drove around and tried to find me an apartment, and that's where it all started.
I gotta say, your timing was pretty good before things got like ridiculous expensive in Vegas, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's good. So that's one bit of luck, and that's it. You never looked back from there, and you saw success immediately.
Yep. Well, I did see success immediately. I think my first World Series, I made something like 60K.
Yeah.
Over the next 2 years, I mean, if you look at my Hendon Mob, I didn't
Yep.
really have very many big scores or cashes, and I would just fire everything on my own because I didn't know any better. All the
Huh.
1500s, all the whatever,
Right.
and I went on a downswing
Yep.
after the first couple of years, and then I can pinpoint like multiple tournaments where I was like, all right, the bankroll needs some help,
Hmm.
and I would just like win a tournament or come in whatever in a tournament,
Hmm.
and It's definitely been up and down. This last year was obviously the best year I've ever had,
Sure.
and hopefully this year follows suit. But I mean, poker is definitely a roller coaster. It's not always up or always down.
Hmm.
You just got to keep grinding and keep working at it.
It's interesting that you referenced tournaments specifically as far as how well you were running. Aren't cash games your bread and butter though?
Now they are. So I didn't actually start playing cash games until like February of last year,
Right.
when I found out the 80 game was going. I played a little bit of like 2040 below before that, but that quickly went away when the pandemic hit.
Right.
Um, but I try to play, 4 days a week at
Hmm.
least. Nowadays for cash games, it's good as a bankroll supplement. But I still think my bread and butter is poker tournaments, and I think the most
Interesting.
profitable time of the year is the World Series,
Hmm.
and I will not take any days off. If there's a tournament I can play, even if it's 2 cards, I will play it.
2 cards. What are you gonna do with 2 cards?
I know it's so difficult to make a hand with 2 cards.
Well, that's interesting though, because if you tournaments are your bread and butter, and we know the buy-in levels that you're at right now, World Series is obviously the primary time to be playing mixed game tournaments, but not during the year as much, at least not without
Right.
traveling too much. So how would you sort of reconcile that?
I used to play every single tournament that the Win offered because the Win is the best place in town for tournaments. I mean,
Okay.
period. And
Even if
they
it's
they
not mixed
run
games, you're saying.
not mixed games. So I
Okay,
used
got
to
it.
be a no limit tournament grinder,
Ah, okay. That
and
explains
I
it. Okay.
played PLO tournaments. I have a win trophy from a no limit tournament. I have a win trophy from PLO. I have a ring from PLO,
Hmm.
bracelet from PLO, whatever. But I've switched to mixed games because I understand that I'm just better at them. There's not a solver out there for everyone to study and be on the same playing
Yep.
field. The only no limit tournament I plan on playing this entire year is the main event,
There you go.
World Series 10K main event. Every other tournament I hope to play is mixed game tournaments,
Right.
and hopefully I can do at least half as well as I did last year.
That's a nice bar. There you go. Well, and I hope just here's hoping no solvers ever for mixed games. Got to keep them nice and pure,
Right.
for us Rex. You mentioned Jason Somerville, so of course I've got to ask about Run It Up Reno, or as Jason would say, Run It Up. So you got to ask about those.
Nailed it.
You have oh, he's a good dude. Hopefully we'll have him on the podcast at some point. You obviously are very fond of it, and obviously they've got a bunch of nice low limit mixed games that they run over there, nice trophies
Yep.
as well. Tell us about your experience at the Run It Up events up in Reno.
I love Run It Up Reno. I was so sad when COVID hit and he had to do away with it. I mean, it's just a nice getaway with some really awesome people, and you get the small stakes tournaments that you don't get to play basically anywhere else. And I can definitely attribute some of my skills to getting to play in those tournaments and getting to play all these different variations of
Mhm.
poker. And my goal in the future for Run It Up is to do commentary, because he has a whole setup with final table coverage.
Yeah.
And I just love talking poker, and I love mixed games, and I want to share mixed games with the rest of the world, hopefully through commentary of these low stakes events. I don't know if you are aware, but I did for a few months host slash commentate a werewolf game
I did not know
for
that.
the Run It Up channel. Do you know what werewolf is?
I've heard of Werewolf. It's a very
So
commonly played communal game where you've got to guess who's the wolf or something like that.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a real time strategy thing where everyone gets assigned a role,
Yeah.
and there's different phases where you go through and try to figure out, based on player tells and live reads, who's
Right.
telling the truth and who's lying. So for a number of months, we would have a weekly werewolf game on Jason's Twitch channel,
Nice.
and I would be the solo host of the game.
Did you have a
Um,
parrot? Do you have Mirko on your shoulders or no?
Mirko was in the next room over, but
There you go.
yes, it was, that was so much fun, and I definitely would love to get into more commentary to kind of share my wisdom, because if you think about it, the people that I look up to in the mixed community, in terms of commentators, are Chris Vitch, Matt Grapenthien. I mean, I looked up to Dylan Horton when he was a streamer on Poker Stars. I mean, these guys have just so much knowledge and so much information in their brain. I mean, Randy Ole, um, they need to share it with the world. And I think just to get people into mixed games and to get people interested in mixed games, so I can win more tournaments and take more money.
There you go. Well, in that sense, we're definitely peas in a pod, except for the fact that you've got 4 bracelets and play high. But in the same idea. We're very
Right, exactly. Just mixed game
like-minded.
grinders.
We're like-minded in that way. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Let's pick your brain a little bit. Let's say there's some folks, I don't know, like me, for example, who play low stakes mixed games. Beyond obviously you've got, your own personal talents and the ability to learn very quickly, all that stuff. But let's just remove that from the equation. Let's talk about perhaps 2 or 3 general tips you could offer low stakes mixed game players who might be looking to sort of step it up a notch and see how they can progress to higher stakes like you did. Well, what would you recommend?
Right. So the number one thing I would say, and this is true for all forms of poker, believe people. Whenever they show strength, they're strong. That's just how poker works in general. And the best thing you can do is make the tough folds, say on rivers, to save money in spots where other people can't. I would say that is step number one, is perfect your live reading skills and just know when people are portraying strength, that they are strong and that they have it. The second thing is know the intricacies of the games that you're playing. Right? If you're playing Archie, understand or try to understand based on draw patterns where your opponents are at. Are they going high? Are they going low? Archie being a 5-card triple draw, high-low split pocketing. And in terms of mixed games in particular, understand where you can make good folds to save bets, and understand where you can make good raises or thin value bets that will get called to make extra bets. Because unlike No Limit, everything's about making bets or saving bets in certain spots in whatever pot you're playing.
Nice. Now, far be it for me to add any additional tips, but I do have to add one asterisk there as far as Archie, just for those who do play the game, know in advance whether this is 9s or better or 6s or better as well, because different rooms spread different versions of Archie. So I think it's time, like in mixed games or any other sort of poker tournament, whatever it is, you got to change gears a little bit. So we'll switch from the mixed game, everything we've been sort of talking about, and let's do sort of like a timeline, your bracelet progression. But let's talk before your breakthrough. Obviously, bracelet number 1 comes back in the day, in 2019.
Back in the day, exactly.
In 2019, you win the 1500 Razz event. And it wasn't, no slouches at that table. You had Robert Campbell, former WSOP Player of the Year, and Scott Clements, bracelet winner as well, for your first ever 6-figure score, 119K. What's your feeling sort of like, navigating your way through that tournament, and you see who's around you at the final table, and then you go ahead and win? What's that feel like for you?
At the time, I mean, it was unreal. I couldn't imagine winning a bracelet in anything, to be honest, because the fields are so big and the games are so tough. And like you said, playing against Scott Clements and Robert Campbell, I mean, there were some other good players at that final table for sure. Looking back at it now, I can honestly say that I realized how well I ran in that tournament. And I didn't play particularly great. I really wish it was televised so I can go back and look at myself and see exactly how lucky I did get and the spots that I could run to see, the equities, and to see if I played well, or if I really do have this notion of I just sunran for the last 2 days of the tournament. So on day 2 of that event, I was down to one small bet. And I ran that all the way
That's
back up to get every single chip in the tournament. But now I can objectively look back and say I got really lucky that first bracelet. But I mean, winning it is obviously an incredible feeling.
for sure. And 119K, was that a difference maker to you as far as like, okay, it's a different kind of life now, or were you sort of already at that stage from money you had made prior?
No, that was definitely a difference maker. That was unfortunately for that tournament, my bankroll back in 2019 wasn't as big as it was the previous years because I was in a downswing and didn't win basically anything.
Right.
So I only actually had about a third of myself in that tournament.
Okay.
So yes, it was big money,
Yeah.
especially for someone who was struggling with the bankroll at the time. But I've come to realize afterwards that I should be taking bigger pieces of myself
Okay.
during the World Series because it's the most profitable time of the year, especially for mixed game players.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Well, you clearly learned that lesson the next year. You're, in the 2020, yes, the online version, albeit, but still, you go ahead and you bank number 2, 506 max PLO, a little under 100K. Did that win feel any different to you? And if so, in what way?
I mean, it was definitely different. So if you look at the picture from 2019 when I had like 40 people on my rail throughout the time of like the final table, and this was at a time where they had like a side final table area with bleachers and like basically a mini Thunderdome.
Sure.
And the second one was just myself on my couch with my girlfriend next to me. And I mean, yes, I mean when I have all of myself in a tournament and I win almost 100K, it's pretty exciting. I can objectively look back at that because there are Twitch videos of with commentary, and I can objectively say that I did play that one very well.
There you go. Okay, so different on multiple
very
levels.
happy with how that one turned out, and that was the only event that I played that entire year.
1 for 1. That's a pretty
One
good
for
record.
one.
Love it.
1 for 1, hang it up.
So without live poker to sort of get those reps in, as the pandemic sets in, how do you stay sharp? How do you study during that time and just, make sure that when, the pandemic does end and you can go back to playing live, that you remain on your A game and hopefully have improved as well?
There wasn't really like tools to study mixed games. Yes, I could have studied PLO and No Limit, but I just find that so boring now that I understand the incredible world of mixed games. So basically, my girlfriend and I kind of learned to cook during that time. I took up more video games. We binged a ton of shows on Netflix and Hulu, shows from back in the day, How I Met Your Mother, Big Bang Theory, Scrubs. I mean, all
Great
the
choices. Oh,
classic shows.
fantastic choices. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, we just binged TV shows. I mean, I caught up on all of Shark Tank. I watched Community. We watched Schitt's Creek. I mean, just anything you can imagine. We just sat hours and hours and binged so much YouTube or so much Netflix and Hulu. And luckily for us, we decided to invest in an exercise bike. And that was a good way to get through not going outside or going wherever.
Sure. Well, fair enough. Okay. So there are those who say that, validation as a player, so to speak, depending on how many bracelets you have and, okay, anyone can win one. I haven't won one, I haven't even cashed in one, just saying. But, oh, that second one, okay, you're the real thing. Did you feel perhaps any additional validation after bracelet number 2?
Number 2, not really, because like I said, it was online and a lot of people don't really put stock into online or I guess really don't don't follow the news or the reporting, or
Right.
know too much about it, the validation definitely came after number three.
There you go. There you go.
Number three was the biggest buy-in I've ever played.
Hmm.
So I've played something maybe like 8 non-main event 10Ks in my life, and I've only ever
Hmm.
cashed in one. But it only takes that one.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the validation of, hey, I might actually be, top whatever percentage in the world in these games.
Right.
And I can definitely play better than the vast majority of people.
Nice.
And
Very
then
cool.
number four coming a week later was
2 weeks.
unbelievable.
2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks later was unbelievable.
So we're definitely going to talk a little bit about bracelets 3 and 4, but just before we do, and we called it, your breakouts, well, not summer but fall, last year, going into the 2021 World Series. Obviously, the whole poker world super excited. That the World Series is back after 2 years. That's really cool. But beyond that, especially after all that Netflixing,
Yeah.
did you have any particular goals going into the series? Like, did you say, like, I want to, cash so many times, win so many, so much amount of money, something like that?
I think setting goals like that is pretty unrealistic. You kind of just have to take it day by day, and whatever happens, just be happy with. And the only thing you can control is how you play your cards.
Right.
If you're unhappy with how you're playing your cards, you need to get back in whatever study mode you can be in, and make sure that you come into the tournament every single day just in the zone, focused and ready to play poker.
Hmm.
So setting goals, like if I say, oh, I want to win another bracelet this year, I'm just putting extra pressure on myself that I don't need to have. Like
Okay.
I said before, my only goal is to have freedom. And as long
Right.
as I can continue to have this freedom, that's all that matters in my life.
Yeah, fair response. Very honest, like that. Also integrity. It's good. That goal sort of continued, I guess. That one main goal. Well, you said you felt very validated after that third bracelet. It's a 10K. It's a championship. I don't think that you've been playing those beforehand. What made you decide that you're ready to go ahead and give it that shot? Because you said how you felt afterwards, like, I am among the best. But did you feel that going in?
So basically, I have a group of friends that convinced me that I needed to play the 10Ks because I was a winning player in the 80 game,
Okay.
and I decided that I was going to sell a large chunk of the 10Ks,
Aha.
um, and that allowed me to play in these fields. And I mean, the horse was definitely a mixture of luck and skill, because I'm playing against the best players in the world, no question.
Right.
And I had Scott Seaver at my table, Marco Johnson, Benny Glazer. I mean, it's just beating these people in a poker tournament and understanding how they play, and trying to be a sponge and learn as much as possible while playing against these guys was the biggest reward of the tournament. I mean,
Wow.
I really like I really do look up to a lot of these players, and if I can soak up any little bit of information just to get better, that's what I do. Every year before the World Series, I watch old World Series videos. That's how I get ready for them. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience, and my girlfriend's parents actually came out. They scheduled a trip months in advance. Didn't know I was going to be at a final table, and got to watch me win that bracelet, which was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Just to have her and her parents at my rail, just watching this entire final table. And then I'm pretty sure I shed a couple tears after number three. Number one and number two, nothing. But number three, that was the one that really got me.
That's huge. And then, for all the reasons you mentioned, that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you got to just sort of relive that, at least to a small degree, now by telling that story. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
you talk about these players you meant, you look up to, and you get some good name dropping in there, some really, really solid names, well known for their
Yeah, definitely.
mixed game prowess. What is it if not necessarily those three, but any players to whom you look up to, what is it about them that, or the way they play, or, what do you think that, I guess, next tier up, or, when you said these are like the elite of the elite, your fellow, whatever you want to call that, what is it about that you do sort of aspire to look up to, that you think sort of separates that tier, that elite tier, from lower tiers?
It's just the way that they think about the game
Hmm.
that separates them from everyone else. Everyone else is playing their own cards,
Mhm.
where these players are playing every single aspect of poker all at the same time. I don't know if you've ever sat down and had a conversation with Scott Seaver,
Nope,
but
not
he
yet.
is like one of the smartest people I've ever met and had the ability to interact with.
Hmm.
Just the way his brain works, I would love to just get in there and just look at it and hear everything that he gets to think about during a hand of poker. Like,
Hmm.
just watching people like that. I mean, I got to play with Ali Alezra, and I widely regard him as one of the best all-around stud players ever. And just watching him play Razz or play stud high, it's just so eye-opening, because he grew up in a world without solvers, without calculators, without anything. He just had to
Sure.
learn all of this stuff on his own by himself.
Right.
He is, I mean, these players are just incredible. And every time I get to sit down at a table with them, I watch them intently to try and pick up literally anything I can. And every time a hand goes to showdown, it's just like free coaching. I mean, you can't beat that.
I love it. And of course, you got to give the shout out to Eliezer. I did translate his book from Hebrew into English. We did have him here on the podcast before. He was episode number 24. As you all know, I love promoting those previous episodes, because there's always plenty to learn from. This is episode number 84, so you guys got 83 wonderful shows to go ahead and consume after you listen to this one with Kevin Gerhart. I wonder if that translates, the things that you're saying as well. Does that translate to cash games as well? Is, like a 200, 400 game, or a 3-6 or higher than that, in your perception of things, is that connected more to that elite skill level, or just perhaps a function of bankroll? Because people who are playing an 8160 game already, it's already a very limited player pool. And, it's like you're nearing the top of the pyramid, so to speak. Is there really that much of a qualitative difference of the folks in that game versus, slightly higher or just higher mixed game limits and cash games?
So for the 80 games specifically versus, say, the 300, 600 that runs at Resorts World,
Yep.
it's a different mix. So I think it's a different skill set.
Got it.
The 300 game is mostly big bet games. So if you're
Okay.
good at no limit single draw, if you're good at PLO or Big O, um, that's where you want to be. And I do think those players that play those games regularly overall are better at those games than people that play the 8160 mix,
Uh-huh.
because the 80 mix is a bunch of split pot games. It's Badesi, Badusi, Drama Haas. There's it's just a different mix. But I think when you get up to, say, 3K, 6K, 4K, 8K, like the Jungle Man, Brian Rass, Scott Seaver, Mike Gorodinsky, like the people that play those games in Bobby's room,
Right.
that's where you definitely see a qualitative difference between how players think about the game of poker.
Fascinating. And you ever taken any? I mean, I know you've played. You tweeted recently about playing in Crazy Mike's game. That's the three
Yeah,
six.
right.
Uh, to tell us about taking a shot a little bit higher. What's that feeling like for you?
I mean, I I was surprised how welcomed I was by the people that play that game regularly. I mean, Crazy Mike, you kind of have to take him with a grain of salt, but once you get past the initial layers, he's like one of the nicest guys, especially when he's winning. I got to play with Crazy Mike and Eric Sagstrom, who might be one of the best limit hold'em players ever. I got to play with ODB, who is
Sure.
an incredibly nice person. Like I just felt so welcomed in this game and in this mix. It was a little nerve wracking because I've never played that high and played for that much money. You know, you can lose $8,000 in a single hand, and that's quite a bit, because if you have a really bad day, you could lose maybe 8,000 at the 80 game.
Yeah, a really bad day.
Really bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And the reason I know that, actually, I will point out, those who don't know, never read my story about it. I had the good fortune of playing in that 8160 game a couple times with yourself, Kevin. That's where I got to meet you at Resorts World. I
Right.
was not playing on my own. I was staked by Ellie. It was very kind to do that. And so kind of a similar. The reason I'm bringing it up, and for besides obvious reasons, is that I felt that same warm welcome. Highest I'd ever played in the mix before was 816, so this is literally 10 times as high as I've ever played before.
Right.
But that's very warm welcome among the wonderful and friendly people in that game. It was pretty cool, I gotta say. And again, I wasn't playing on my own stake, but knowing what sort of losses were there and hearing what you say, a really bad day is 8K, makes me feel a little bit better about the amounts that I lost. So that was good. Yeah, a little very open here from Robbie, but not about me. But this 8060 game, it's legendary. It runs all the time, and it's got a lot of characters in there. It's Ali Najad, we all know, is part of that game. He's known as Baba. He's got nickname. Tell us a little bit, whoever you feel comfortable mentioning is in that game, about the characters you can find around the table regularly.
I mean, one of my current best friends, I met playing that game, Andrew, and we've been golfing regularly,
Nice.
which I've really never played golf before, and I'm still pretty awful at it. I mean, Scotty, who we call Baby Yoda in the game, is definitely one of the smartest people I've met. He went to Stanford and has like a master's in applied math. And I mean, like you said, Ali Najad. We get some bracelet winners in there every once in a while, but I think I'm the only like regular bracelet winner. Most of these people are just cash game players and don't really play in the World Series because they have lives and jobs and families. And one of the things I like about the 80 mix is I don't have to play against people like me on a regular basis. People that make a living from playing poker, who have to win to pay their mortgage, right?
Right.
I like having some sort of stability from the people who have real jobs and are even close to retirement or
Sure.
whatever in the game. But I've definitely come a long way even in this game. When I first started playing the 80 mix, I remember Nathan Gamble, who plays in the game regularly, also a bracelet winner, would tell Ali Najad that he's played poker with me before and that he doesn't want me in the game because I'm a winning player allegedly. And then eventually I weaseled my way into the game, and I've definitely become like a mainstay. And Ali and Andrew and Scotty and all of us have become pretty good friends over the last year of playing this game together.
Pretty awesome. And we give the shout out, so you got to also say Nathan Gamble was episode number 59, Alina Jado was episode number 60. And again, I will just say very openly and frankly, I feel really privileged that I got to play in that game. And it was pretty cool because within 15 minutes, after the jitters kind of fritter away, I said, yeah, it is just chips, you can go ahead and play. But what I loved the most, again, like I said, welcoming atmosphere, but it felt like a home game. It was a really cool feeling. Like you just get in there, you're all buddies. Sure, you're obviously trying to take each other's money, but that feeling was also pretty evident of like, win or lose, it's not going to break somebody. And that's a pretty cool vibe and atmosphere to have there. So kudos to all of you for having a game like that running. I think it's good for poker to have that, and good for folks to aspire to. If folks out there, if you've ever wanted to take a shot, I guarantee there's no friendlier environment to do it in than the 80/60 at Resorts World. Before we get into my last question, I just kind of want to know, and then we got, of course, the questions from our listeners here, our Cards Chat community from the forums. Could you give us perhaps a tip or two for your favorite game, favorite variant in the mix? So what is the variant, and what are perhaps one or two tips for that variant?
So my favorite game might be surprising. Is actually double board Omaha.
Okay.
Right. So it's 4 cards in your hand, and you play Omaha on 2 different boards, and it's a split pot game between the high on each board.
Correct.
Right. So the this game, I would assume most people know how to play it and what the strategy is, but high card value is key. Right. If you have ace, king, queen, jack, that is a monster in that game. You know, aces or kings, obviously monsters in that game. You want to stay away from, 6, 7, 8, 9 type of hands, or hands with deuces or threes in them, because they just don't help your hand overall, and it's so hard to scoop in that game. And the best way to do it is to make a big 2 pair and a big 2 pair,
Yep.
and that, or a big flush and a pair of aces or something.
Right.
So that's actually my favorite game in the mix.
Awesome. I think it's also known, at least in lower stake circles, as the Norman Chad Special, double board Omaha High. Another wonderful player with whom to play some mixed games. My last item for you here, Kevin, as far as I know, there's a very handsome podcast host who's going to be running a mixed game festival at Resorts World this summer from June 12th to 16th. I know why I wanted to work with that room, but you have a unique perspective as a regular there. What would you say that room, and I am singling that out for a reason, what would you say that Resorts World does particularly well as far as being a great staging ground for mixed games specifically? And to that extent also, you said you want to promote mixed games, you want to spread it. Part of the way to do that is by saying, well, here's a great room. What could other rooms who would want to go ahead and promote mixed games and do it well, what do you think, what sort of traits, characteristics should they emulate if they want to attract a crowd like that?
Right. So the staff is the best in town at Resorts World. The dealers, the floor, the management, everything is top tier quality. We never have any problems with any of them. Even when they hire in new dealers, they make sure that they're willing to learn, and we can teach them exactly how we want all of our mixed games dealt. Resorts World is just the best place to play poker for us, because we get our own private, like Bobby's room type of treatment, which was awesome, as you know, right?
Yep.
Control the TVs and the speakers.
Yeah.
But I would say in general, I think we're transitioning to a point where Resorts World is going to be the place for mixed games in Vegas. We already have an 816 that runs there very, very regularly, the 8160, and then 300, 600. If a group wants to come in, they have a 2040 that runs at the Wynn somewhat infrequently, but every once in a while. I think they would do much better at Resorts World, because there's ways for you to move up. Whereas if you just go to the Win, it's one stake. But if you want to play 816, you're feeling good, you got the bankroll. Let's try 2040. All right, we played 2040 for a while. Let's take a shot at 8160. Maybe we have to sell some action to some friends or whatever. But that's how I moved up.
Nice.
I moved up from stake to stake, and at Resorts World, with the mainstays being mixed games at this point, that's the place to play poker, in my opinion.
Nice. And I like also, like, it's not a knock on Win, so to speak, but that whole laddering up as a mixed game player, that certainly makes a lot of sense. And there are other rooms besides, obviously, other places besides Las Vegas. Guys, let's see, again, from two people, again, peas in a pod, we want to promote mixed games. That's how to do it. Start spreading it at low stakes. Guys, in this segment of the show, we turn to you, our Cards Chat community, to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. We do have a dedicated thread in the Cards Chat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. A nice new name here. It's always good to see a new participant. T-Pack, thank you so much, T-Pack, for sending these in. T-Pack wants to know, Kevin, are there any changes in live poker brought about by COVID that you would like to see implemented permanently?
Any changes? Oh, there is one change that I would love to see. So this only happens at the Win, from my knowledge. So they spread a $1, $2, $5 PLO game, right?
Okay.
So it's the blinds are 1, 2, and bring in is $5, and we're 5 to 15, and they made it 8-handed rather than 9-handed, and I do believe that was a direct result from COVID. And
Yeah.
I would love to see poker stop being 9-handed and start being 8-handed just as the norm. I understand why it's 9-handed.
Yep.
Some rooms even go up to 10-handed, but I would love to see, I mean, not for mixed games. Mixed games play best 6-handed, in my opinion.
7's okay.
So 7's okay, but I
Okay.
prefer 6.
Okay.
But in terms of like no limit, PLO, tournament poker, I would love to see 8-handed across the board. And I do think that was a good change brought on by COVID.
Here, here. I agree. I hereby concur with you, and I can probably guess that a lot of folks are listening to you like nodding their heads. Yep, that's what we want to see. So
Yeah,
it's good to
exactly.
see that for the most part, at least thus far, has remained the case. So that's pretty cool. One more question from T-Pack. Kevin, if you could change one thing about the WSOP, what would it be?
If I could change one thing about the
You only get
WSOP,
one.
what would it be? There are things, multiple things that I would love to change. I'm trying to think what would be my top priority to change at the World Series of Poker. Honestly, I think the change I would like to see is compensate the dealers more, because I think if you compensated them more and they cared more, they would want to come to work. They wouldn't be working, 12 hours a day every single day, which affects their dealing. So I think if they were compensated more, then they would do their job better. Not to say that it's across the board, but some dealers, especially in mixed games, just aren't as well versed as others, right? So they need a little bit of help at the table. And I think if they're compensated better, working fewer hours, then they would definitely be more awake. I don't know if that's the right word, but more
Alert.
more into doing their job at a higher level, right? If you offer more money to the dealers, you'll also get more dealers from other locations to come in that are more experienced.
Right.
The WSOP basically just hires thousands and thousands of dealers, and I'm unsure, how the resumes look.
I mean, of
But
course, obviously there's the labor shortage and the unique factors for
exactly,
currently right now. But I do
yeah,
think a lot of folks have echoed those sentiments, and it was nice to see. Just a few weeks back, Jack Ethel did come out there, and they definitely stepped
right.
up quite a bit. So that was pretty cool. And I guess we'll see. Just a few weeks away, we've got the World Series coming, and hopefully, beyond the obvious multitude of hours of preparation that the top staff at WSOP do. Hopefully, also the dealers will be coming in, and everyone giving it their best shots. I definitely a good answer there. And of course, we can always hope. And one thing, as we all know, those who play the highest stakes, the 10Ks and up, they do certainly get the best dealers dealing for them. So that's another thing, another
That's
reason to
true.
aspire to the highest stakes. Acid Burn FX, we always love questions from them. Thank you so much. Has asked Kevin if you could pick a sixth sense to have. Which one would it be and why?
Is that including like things that would be considered cheating?
No,
Okay. All right. So I'm not allowed to just mind read people and know what their whole cards are, right?
I figured that's what you would ask, but no, that is not allowed. There's still TDA rules. So
Right, exactly. So if I'm not allowed to cheat, what would be my sixth sense? I mean, how close am I? I would just like a better like psychological understanding of humans in general,
There you
because
go.
I can parlay that into understanding how people think and how people act at the poker table. So not as far as mind reading, but just
Mhm.
a psychological understanding of how people act and behave at a poker table. And I can
Cool.
use that to deduce strength, weakness, hole cards, whatever.
Cool. Okay. You may have already answered this. I'm not sure. I don't want to project, but a great question here from Acid Burn FX. What moment of your life did you feel most alive?
I really think okay, so there's two, and I think it's either bracelet one or bracelet three. And I think
Okay.
I would have to give it to bracelet one because
Hmm.
just winning the first one just put so much confidence in me. And the very next day, I actually entered the 10K Razz, which was my first ever non-main event 10K. After
Okay.
winning, after winning the day before and having Jason Somerville himself say, "I'll buy whatever piece you want.
Ah,
No one, no one in the world right now is as good at Raz as you are. You need to play this tournament."
awesome. Wow.
So that just kind of like, yes, bracelet three gave me more validation in terms of, okay, it wasn't a fluke. All right, I can actually do this. But bracelet one, I think, was the most alive I've felt.
Very cool.
Can I give an honorable mention?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so an honorable mention was one of the first ever 1500s I played in Cleveland was sponsored by Harley Davidson, and they gave away a motorcycle in a random drawing. And it was like a $20,000 Fat Boy Harley Davidson motorcycle. And you don't have to win the tournament or whatever, but I final tabled the tournament and they did the drawing and they called my name. And I won a freaking motorcycle. And so I ask if, is there a cash prize? Because I would never ride a motorcycle.
Right.
And they go, oh, we'll give you 13,000 for it. And you still have to pay taxes on it. And I was like, what? So you're giving me like 8 grand, 7 grand, maybe? Like,
Instead of a
okay.
20K bike. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I decided at Thanksgiving dinner that I was going to tell my dad that I was going to give him the motorcycle. And that was just like one of the like first things I can ever remember doing something like really nice for someone else by playing poker. And I try to give hotel rooms or whatever when I can, free drinks or whatever, just little things. But that was one of the coolest moments of my life. And I mean, in terms of feeling alive, I love being able to help those that I really like and people that I really enjoy spending time with, just make them happy.
Awesome. It gives me the warms and fuzzies. It's really, really beautiful. I mean, I kind of wonder, when your mom had said, "I'll believe it when I see it," was that kind of like a pivotal moment for her also? Like when you go ahead and like, "Here, Dad, here's a motorcycle." How
Yeah.
did she react to that?
She mentioned the word divorce. I mean, she was not happy at all because
Because
he'd
of the
never ridden a
motorcycle.
motorcycle. He was going to kill himself on the motorcycle,
Oh no.
but eventually she just gave into it. And I
Uh-huh.
mean, we're almost 7 years later now, and he's still riding.
There you go. Beautiful. Many happy rides up ahead, hopefully. One
Yeah.
last question, asker Crystals. Thank you very much for submitting these. Crystals wants to know, Kevin, this is actually, you had mentioned, I don't remember if it was on recording or without, that you'd only ever been to Canada. Beyond the US, Crystals wants to know, now that the world is opening up again, are you looking to do any additional travel to play some more live poker series around the world?
I don't think I would travel to play poker. There was a time right before COVID hit that I had scheduled a trip with my girlfriend and some friends to go play the Poker Players Championship
There
in
you go.
Europe, and we would do a trip around Europe for a couple weeks before the tournament started. But I don't think I would want to travel to play poker. I mean, the reason I went to Canada was to play on Stars and play mixed games for Scoop before the World Series to try and get ready for it. But I would love to travel around Europe at some point. And I told my girlfriend if she ever has the extra vacation, then we could go spend a week in Germany or whatever.
Wait, nice.
But yeah, poker. No, there's enough here that I get myself.
Very good. From a wonderful Las Vegas resident. Last question for you, Kevin, again from Crystals. Thank you, Crystals. Crystals wants to know if you could influence one part of the poker world, what would it be and why?
Influence one part of the poker world, what would it be and why? I mean, do I take the easy way out and just say I want to see more people playing mixed games? No. I just want an overall consensus of people. If you're playing poker, just an understanding of win or lose, life goes on. I just want no more blowing up at people, no more yelling at recreationals for how they play their cards, getting their money in bad and getting there. I just want people to just treat each other with kindness and respect at the poker table, because you understand that you're playing a game, and I want you to know that no matter win or lose, life goes on afterwards, and there's literally no reason to ever get mad at a poker table, especially at the dealers, throwing cards, throwing tantrums. Just treat people better in the poker community. And every time someone blows up with someone else, I try to step in, especially if it's aggression towards the dealer.
Beautiful and wonderful note on which to end this show. I want to thank everyone who sent in questions for Kevin Gerhart. And of course, just a friendly reminder once again to everyone out there in the CardsChat community, we would love to see you submit your questions for our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. Guys, please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you like the show. Kevin, before we let you go, anything else you would like to tell our audience?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Thanks to everyone for the questions. I've been looking forward to this ever since I got to play mix with Robbie, a month or two ago, whenever that was.
Yep.
I'm excited to like we talked about, finally have validation, quote unquote validation, and get drafted highly in the 25K fantasy, try and get more time doing commentary or more podcasts. I really enjoyed this, and I appreciate it.
That's awesome. That's super cool to hear. Thank you very much, Kevin. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the CardsChat podcast. I'm Robbie Strazynski. You can follow me on Twitter at CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.